Morning everyone, and welcome to Djuma in Arathusa in this, the 3.5 million hectare Greater Kruger National Park and Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. As you can see, we just had a fantastic African sunrise. I just want to wish you a good morning from the control room, where Will and Tara are operating the technical stuff that we don't understand. Vian's sitting behind me on camera, and he's the one who's just shot you that great sunrise. And then we've got Mark and Brian off somewhere else on the reserve. The plan for the day so far, just off to our northern side, we've had sounds of Franklin alarm calling. They probably have heard a leopard or seen a leopard. So we're going to go and see if we can follow up there. There's quite a lot of activity in the area. Otherwise, we're going to potter about and see what else the wonders of the Kruger Park can show us today. And we hope that you have a good time. Please remember to ask us some questions if you have any, on questions at WildEarthTV, or use the Twitter hashtag Safari Live. Okay, we're going to head on and see what we can see. The Franklins are the little ground birds we get here, and they will often make a big noise if they see a leopard, or could be a wild cat, could even be a snake or something. But there were leopard tracks seen in this area yesterday, so we're going to see if we can find them here. Very clear, as you can see, the skies are perfectly clear, which has made the weather a bit crisper than it was yesterday in that misty morning. So Brian is wrapped up, at least Vian is wrapped up nice and warm. As you can see, am I. To have a listen here to see if we can pick up those Franklins again, otherwise we'll carry on quite quickly. It is so important out here to make sure that you use all your senses. I've found wild dogs quite often just through smell, because they smell like wet dogs. And then obviously something like a leopard, your ears are highly important, because you'll be hearing the alarm calls. But it's pretty quiet at the moment. We'll move forward a bit. On the road there, those are the sorts of Franklins that have been alarm calling. That's called the crested Franklin, and it's the most common Franklin we get here. Often the first bird to call in the morning. A great natural alarm clock if you struggle to wake up. nice to be out early, hopefully as early as you can be, because the tracks are fresh in the morning, obviously. And before too much is walked over them, like those Franklins, for example, they'll obliterate cat tracks. And it's great just to be able to get a handle on what happens in the night. The tracks obviously tell a whole story of their own. And so much of what goes on in the wild doesn't stop when we go to bed, it continues. And so the story of the night is written on the roads and the tracks of the animals. You can hear the Franklins again, but they're not alarm calling, they're just giving their sort of territorial morning wake-up call. One of the best things about the bush here, which you unfortunately can't pick up on where you're sitting, is the smell of the wild. The freshness, the smell of the soil, even the earthy smell of some old elephant dung. Very comforting. I'm not finding any leopard tracks on the road, but we'll keep circling the area, see what we can hear. Leopards, unlike the lions, are more than happy to hunt. Generally be active. shadows for unsuspecting prey. Onto the crest here and probably have another listen and then make a plan from there. How long I'm assuming some sort of on my background. Kathy, welcome and good morning, or good evening to you, I suppose. I have been in the bush for about 10 years, mainly I've done quite a lot of guiding, quite a lot of guide training, quite a lot of research, mainly into the people that surround South African game parks, the rural people. And I've been with Wild Earth now for about a day, which is not a long time. So about 10 years in the bush, 10 years working with animals and the people around wilderness areas. We're going to carry on looking for these leopard tracks. While we're doing that, we're going to cross you over to Mark so that you can say hi to him and we'll see what he's after.
Well, good morning, cold morning, good morning to you all. Welcome to Wild Earth this morning. Welcome to the Wendy. We're on the northern boundary of Djuma Game Reserve here in the Sabi Sands, heading east. My name is Mark and Brian is on camera this morning. You're going to enjoy the morning sunrise safari with us. And we started this morning trying to pick up at the tracks from the pride of life that we saw yesterday, and found their tracks here on Purples of Cut Line, but they headed west and followed their tracks for about a quarter of a mile, 200 meters, 800 meters or so, and less than that, 500, 400, whatever. Followed them for a while, and then the tracks crossed over into up on their tracks and maybe follow on the dam and to our far eastern boundary, or the people can find something exciting up this way. I haven't been this way for a while now actually. I've been concentrating on the south and the east for the western part, going on to Arathusa quite a bit the last few days. For now, I want to see what's up here in the northeastern corner of Djuma. Be great to hear from you. Still heading west. That could have been them in Manyaleti then. The second ones that we saw lion this morning. And these lions are still heading west in Buffelshoek. That would take them eventually into Manyaleti. So, it will be interesting to hear how that progresses. Well, I'd love to hear from you. Well, both myself and James, all of us. Yeah. Questions at WildEarthTV is an email, so you can tweet the hashtag Safari Live. Beautiful skies, just a little bit crisp and cool. Online sources say that it is 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius. I'd say it's a little colder than that. But I'm actually wearing gloves that aren't really helping much. It's cold here. But they do the trick. It's a really nice track, but weird because it has to turn. Sunday morning here in Africa. For some of you, hope you're enjoying your weekend. That's the wild dog track. Game drive vehicle up on Cheetah Cutline boundary, way up at the top of this road that you can see in the distance. I don't know if they have something, but we'll go and have a look. Wild dog are a little different. To track because they are so erratic in the way that the cut line. There. The Gary Catline Junction on the Catline.
Welcome back to
I think it's from this morning. We're on there last time.
welcome back to Giga. We're still having trouble with that elusive cat, spotted cat. So we're going to keep going along, just check the dam down here and see if we can't find any tracks there, or maybe pick up on some other sort of animals. Close, took my head off. But hopefully they'll be back in the near future. And like I said last night, they are likely to be denning. So unlike normally birth their young in the spring months, wild dogs are quite interesting because they select winter, and that's because their hunting strategy is one of forcing, which means that they don't stalk animals, they don't rely on stealth like a lion or a leopard would. They rely on the ability to see, they rely on vision. And the best about the Battalier is that it has almost no tail. The American stealth bomber also has no tail. It's extremely unstable design, and apparently the electronics required to keep it stable are quite phenomenal. Now, a Battalier is born with a long tail, and it takes 7 years for it to lose that tail. So it takes 7 years for the Battalier to learn to fly, because it's so unstable. And the reason that it needs to not have a tail is that it flies very low, and so it has to minimize drag. But other than that, Joanne, there was recently a survey done of the country of South Africa's favorite bird. And quite apart from our magnificent eagles and owls and colorful parrots, South Africa chose the Cape Robin as its favorite bird. I'm not sure why, but I also really like the Cape Robin, and it just has a very soothing call, and I suspect that's probably one of the reasons. Hippo tracks on the road. Which way do you think, Bjorn?
Right.
You go right. Alright.
Going in the front.
Bjorn knows what's going on here. It's been here a bit longer. Janet has a fascinating question about domestic dogs and wild dogs. And she'd like to know, I think she's in Boston, where the midsummer temperature is probably like what it is here in winter. Janet wants to know, did domestic dogs come from African wild dogs rather than from wolves? Janet, no, they didn't. Apparently, as far as I understand it, domestic dogs come from wolves, and I think they were originally domesticated in North America, if I'm not mistaken. There's no history of there's no history of wild dog domestication in South Africa or in Africa, and as far as I know, the dogs have never crossed out of the continent. That said, you do find a sort of a similar species in India, but as far as I'm aware, that also hasn't been domesticated. So as far as we're aware, all domestic dogs, from your beastly little Yorkshire Terrier right up to the enormous Great Dane or Irish Wolfhound, come from the same wolf stock. I've just got a bit of a problem with my wheel, so I'm just going to have a quick look there. Seems to be half a tree stuck in it. Right, we continue on the trail. Nice to have the sun in the face. from Jennifer in Toronto, who would like to know whether birds and squirrels and other animals that might alarm call would stop doing so if a lion or if a pride of lions was sort of stationary and resting up for the day. The answer, Jennifer, is yes, they would. Normally what happens if, let's pretend a pride of lions moved into an area and then settled down, there would initially be a flurry of alarm calling, and then the birds would certainly move away and go about their business. And with leopards, it's quite interesting. They have, and this is not scientifically proven, but I've watched it a few times, when a leopard has a sort of white tip to the tail, and when they're stalking and hunting, they tend to put the tail down because it's quite obvious to see, and there's not a lot of white color out here, and so white is often very easy to see. So when they're stalking, they'll put it down, and when they're not, and the birds, as soon as the birds start alarm calling to them, they'll flick the tail up, almost as if to say, no trouble here, I'm not looking for anything to eat. And it does tend to calm some of the birds down. Nyala off to the side there. Have a quick look at them. See a Nyala ewe. Our first mammal of the morning. And there's a lamb just behind her, a sort of sub-adult lamb. One of our most beautiful antelope. They like to live in the thick bush where they can hide, and those stripes kind of break the outline and dapple the light when in the sort of half light when the predators that would hunt them are stalking. I've always thought it must be something of a relief in the morning for an antelope like this to have made it through another night where the predators are at their most threatening. Very delicate movements. But surprisingly tough if the needs call for it. A beautiful little cameo sighting. Let's carry on. seems that Mark's signal has been restored, and he's now, I'm not sure what he's on the track of, but we're going to go and find out from him how things are going.
Oh, welcome back to Wendy. A little bit there, we went to a dip and we were going through some rather poor signal areas. But I was trying to follow just one set of wild dog tracks. Seemed to come to Buffelshoek Dam and then Buffelshoek Dam onto Buffelshoek Dam and then unfortunately no sign of the rest of the pack. Unusual in that it was on its own, yes, perhaps, but not that unusual. So now we're on Nyala Road South. We've come from Buffelshoek Dam. There were evidently some leopard tracks going west along Central Road, which would be heading towards the dam. Or they might have come through here onto Nyala Road. So we're going to do a combined tracking exercise. If I don't find anything here, we'll know that he's gone more towards Gowrie Dam. But it looks like it because there's nothing here. Except some old elephant tracks. Sounds like the white-browed scrub robin calling. Morning, Angie. Angie's in Ohio. Wanting to know if I saw the video of Quarantine and Djuma sharing a kill on Arathusa. I saw the picture of them. I didn't see the video. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to load video at the moment. But I did. I think in one of the pictures that somebody posted, I asked for an idea of where on Arathusa, if it was on Arathusa, to where that particular incident took place, because I was very keen to get some understanding of where it happened. So I'm just looking at some interesting tracks here that look like a very young hippo. And another hippo walking through. It's really sad that we missed that if it was on Arathusa, because we have traversing on Arathusa. If it was on Arathusa Safari, or then again, if it was on Arathusa Private, we wouldn't have been able to go there. But if anybody has any idea of where that actually took place, I'd be very interested to know. Unfortunately, Arathusa is having some really serious problems with their radio, so they're not able to contact anybody. And we can't contact them when we're on Arathusa unless we're lucky enough to bump into them when we're there. But it would have just been one of those things that we missed. What do I think of it? I think it's quite amazing. I think it's unusual, but we have witnessed things like that before. But maybe not as 2-year-olds, nearly 2.5 now. I remember seeing Duna with his father Jambido, you're down.
Any updates on the course of it?
On this kill together. I think the last time we saw Mission and Duna together with a kill, they were not very pleasant with each other. The kill was in a marula tree with one of them. The other one was in another marula tree and they were snarling at each other. And when one left the carcass, the other one would go up to it.
I will try my unity to get more until the higher, yes. Well, just cover that.
So we saw some lion in Manaleti in the dark this morning. I'm wondering if it was maybe Kahumas. Then Kahumas have headed west. It sounds like they've already crossed the boundary with Manaleti, so they are on Manaleti. How far in Manaleti? Well, that's debatable.
One station is like on the Torchwood.
Nothing here. Took out Batalero. Oh, there's a crested bar, but let's hope it's there. No, it's not going to stay.
That's right. Captain, right? There's the Dutch console coming. Where do you know? Yeah, this was the country. I like it's from a more north and it's like in there. Could be a problem. I want to get it very outside.
Just couldn't quite get it. They don't sit still for too long. There it is. On those three at the back. See if you zoom out. Top right. Just not standing still, this bird. Oh, it's hidden now. It's behind those leaves. I'll have to try and... Oh, there's a yellow... That's a black-headed oriole that just flew into the tree now as well, but it's also behind branches. We're coming into the Mawati River. Hornbills flying down the river. Quite a bit of bird activity. I'll just stay here for a second. There's a southern black-tip hopping on the lowest branch. Very lowest one. No, it's gone.
That's not a good angle, this.
No, and the oriole's now too high up. Okay, let's try another tree for birds. If we get another bird party. Or I could try and go back a little bit. It's good, there's such nice sunlight on it because it's the sun rising behind us. And as we come down the slope, hello oriole. Let's go back. I don't know if you can see the oriole. Goodbye, oriole. Brief glimpse of the black-headed oriole. Alright, I'm going to try another birding tree if we get lucky. But it'd be nice to do a little bit of birding, to do a bit of a bird quiz this morning. For those of you who are interested, occasionally we find some interesting birds, and it's nice to have the viewer, identify them for us. Into the sun for a little bit as we head up Bateleur Road back up towards Cheetah-Line. First, let's see who's here in the sand. Hippopotamus and hippopotamus. Easier to see tracks going into the sun than it is away from the sun. But at the moment, nothing really to track, so we're just looking for things. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll find some tracks that we could follow a little bit. Sounds like a lot of elephants through the waterhole. Seems to be the story of my life. I'm always the furthest possible place away from Arathusa. Earlies are there. We can maybe try and make our way there and follow up on them. Morning, Jeffrey. Jeffrey's in Texas, Austin in Texas. A place that I'd like to see one day because of the bats, the bridge. I find that very interesting. Jeffrey wants to know if there are any animals that die as a result of the colder weather. There are, Jeffrey. I've had old kudu die from extreme conditions, from a snap of frost. I've seen chameleons die from the cold, from an unusual cold snap. There was a time a few years ago, because I do a little bit of work in the Salati Game Reserve, not to be confused with Salati Lodge, which is one of the Sabi Sand. Lodge here at the Sabi Sand. It's not Salati Lodge, it's Salati Game Reserve. It's a private reserve northwest of Timbavati, northwest of the edge of Kruger where Palabora is. Anyways, there was one time in Salati, and it was, strangely enough, it was the beginning of summer, it was in November. There were some very severe thunderstorms, and then for some reason there was a very, very cold snap. And after some really warm temperatures, with that cold snap, there were several deaths from that sudden snap of cold. Nyala in particular, there were a bunch of Nyala that died. The impala that we found yesterday, I've got a funny feeling he died from a cold-related, temperature-related thing, because there were no visible signs of trauma, except for a couple of puncture wounds on the rump that showed signs that it was perhaps post-mortem. Because of the blood droplets that were on the fur, that could not have occurred while he was alive. And they were just superficial. They weren't deep enough to cause his death. It's a little ram. His horns were only about an inch long. I think most animals can cope with it, as long as it's not too severe a cold snap. But I think that things like that it's possible for animals to get pneumonia or to just get hypothermia maybe. I think if I'm getting the name correctly, Halal is asking if we'll be able to see that late blooming gardenia today. I could go past it, but there weren't any other buds. There was just the one flower that was there. And yesterday evening, by the time I got there, it wilted. I've been looking at other gardenias. In the hope of finding a flower. Also, that is, we're on the eastern boundary, almost, and that's on the extreme western boundary, so it's a very difficult trip to do in a hurry. But we do have a couple of hours at our disposal, so we can make our way there, have a look, and have a look at other gardenias in the process, en route. Morning, Christy. Christy, I think is in Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. Wants to know if there are any animals here that hibernate, like they do. I think you're in Oklahoma. Just correct me if I'm wrong, Christy. Could be Louisiana. So. Oh, Okie, maybe. Christy wants to know if animals hibernate like they do in North America. No, they don't. We don't have that kind of cold, and also we don't get any snow. So there's no real need to. The other thing is that our temperatures during the day, I mean today we could probably get it with this lovely blue sky, we could probably get temperatures in the high 20s, almost 30 degrees, high 80s, almost maybe 90. We can get very warm temperatures during the day in our colder months. So a lot of the animals that ordinarily would hibernate, like the reptiles perhaps, can be active during the day, especially our lizards. Some of the snakes. I've had snakes quite active during the day in winter. In fact, in the morning like this right now, we should be, I have been looking at every tree I go past almost. to see if there are any holes in the trees where there is a snake poking its head out. Normally it would be on the eastern side of a tree where they can get this morning sunlight and warm themselves up. But with this cold, a lot of the animals are probably still curled up somewhere, waiting for the day to warm up. Seeing a few tracks from nocturnal animals, but not seeing much in the way of fresh tracks from our usual suspects like impala, kudu, nyala. They haven't started walking around much yet. The other thing we might see sticking out of a hole is a monitor lizard. And now going up onto Cheetah Cutline with these big marula trees on Cheetah Cutline, we might also be lucky enough to see an agama lizard. They're about also just sitting in the sun for the morning. And that's the best time to see them because they're rather slow still, being a little bit chilly. The reptiles are very shy and they disappear very quickly before we can get to see them. And the other thing is that being very shy, we can't really get close to them. So quite often when we do find a reptile, it might be a little bit too far from the camera to get a really good view. Nothing much happening here yet. Morning, Elizabeth. Interesting tree to look for reptiles is the torchwood. Elizabeth wants to know about the wild dogs, saying that evidently there were 5 wild dogs made a kill. They killed an impala much further south, on the property much further south of us. Oh, another zebra tracks here. Wanting to know if it's the same wild dog that we saw here yesterday. I need to find out how many dogs we saw yesterday, or how many dogs were in there. I didn't see any wild dog yesterday, so I think I need to find out from James how many wild dogs that were seen. It could very well be the same pack. The northern part of Mala Mala is not very far from us. It's just the other side of Little Gowrie, in fact, the Mala Mala boundary. So If it was, I suppose it really matters where on Mala Mala. Oh, that's small impala herd. At least there's something to see. For now. Morning, Mr. Mala, and your lady impala. You've only got a handful of females. Wild dog travel over such a vast area that, yes indeed, the wild dogs that are seen there are no doubt the same ones that are seen here. There are two packs. There's the one pack with the half-tail pack, which are about 13, 14 dogs, and I think there is that other pack of about 5 dogs. Maybe it was them. Well, while we're sitting with these impala, it seems that some people are hearing a lot of the game drive radio nowadays. We won't be having that for too long. What I can tell you is a lot of the beeping that you can hear is every time anything happens on the radio it makes a beep. This is a new system that's been implemented in most of the Sabi Sand. There are 1 or 2 lodges that have opted out of it. But it is a digital radio system rather than an analog, and it is supposed to revolutionize the radio communications by being digital. And as yet we have still got some tweaking to do to get the radios that we can hear, get it coming through our earphones like we used to do with the old analog radio, analog game drive radio. The fittings are a little different, so we just need to build some. Add a few more wires. It won't be much longer that we'll be hearing the beeping in the game drive radio, and soon we'll have them we'll have it in our ear, and you won't hear it anymore. Looks like a steenbok that just came across the road up ahead. I'm going to go and have a look, and then we'll continue our ride. Some zebra tracks heading south, maybe we can find them too. There it is, just behind that marula tree. Thank you, Carolyn, in Texas, saying that she's pretty sure that James counted 5 dogs yesterday, and if it's the case, then it most definitely will be the same pack of dogs. It's a little male steerbuck, and he's a youngster, so mom and dad might be around. Tiny little horns starting to come out. Steenbok, when they're adult, their horns are about as long as their ears. So he's probably about a yearling. Hey little boy, where's your mama? What was that?
To bite the starling.
The smallest antelope we get here, it's not the smallest antelope you have in Africa. But but we just don't have any of those really tiny little dwarf antelopes. This is also considered a dwarf antelope. It is, I wish I could explain how tall it is. Try and find it. Maybe a cocker spaniel, and the francolins in the grass that are with it. Maybe not as much as heavy in body as a cocker spaniel, but maybe standing about as tall, almost as tall. Distant call of a fish eagle. You're going to come out into the open for us. Starling making a noise off in Torchwood. Monogamous creatures, the steenbok. Steen means stone, so I guess it could be called a stonebuck, not to be confused with the Steinbock, the mountain goat that the Germans call a Steinbock. I mean, spooked him. There's some birds. I also heard a lilac-breasted roller alarming off to our left, but there's nothing to be seen. Could be they're just birds arguing amongst each other. Very small territory for the steenbok. They do actively defend the territory. Everything the male does, he does to please his female, maintaining his territory, keeping other males away. And this little one would most likely still be in his father's territories. Now, despite the fact that they are monogamous and they are mating for life as a relative term, because if one of them dies, then they've obviously got to find another mate. Run off quite far. And I'd say the most interesting feature of the steenbok, the most interesting fact that I can tell you, is that they bury their dung. They make a little scraping, they defecate in it, and they actually cover it up. And sometimes if we get to sit with steenbok, and it might be happening more now as we're going into the dry season, the grasses are starting to flatten a little bit, so we're actually starting to see them more. And if we get a chance to watch them for over a bit of time, we get to see them do that maybe. Hey little one, we still want to watch you for a little while because you're really cute. I guess called a stonebuck or a steenbok because of that colour. They are sort of the colour of stone, and when they are trying to evade detection, they'll hide and sit as still as a stone. Shanae, morning Shanae. Oh, I guess could be good afternoon for you in New Zealand. The Shanae wants to know, what does a steenbok do if it loses its mate? Does it find another one? I think pretty much so, Shanae. Most animals, that although they are supposedly monogamous and mate for life, there are going to be times when they will lose a mate. and the drive to find another one, well, the drive to mate, the drive to procreate is there, so they will find another one. And I think it happens all the time. It's very difficult, unfortunately, very difficult to identify individual steenbok. So when you do get to know individuals, I've got steenbok that live around my house. In fact, they eat my succulents when I'm not there, with the duiker and the elephant and the kudu. But I wouldn't know if the male was to be taken by a leopard. I wouldn't know if it was the same male that I would see consistently over time, or whether if he's taken by a leopard it would be replaced by another male. There aren't really many distinguishing features on a steenbok, and unless you get two standing next to each other like an impala perhaps, you could maybe see some minor variation in the shape of the horns or some outstanding feature. So it's very difficult to follow individuals within a small territory. Certainly a challenge. So I wonder how we do Mamba Road. Go west, one way. Down Mamba Road. A long straight road. I don't know why it was called Mamba Road. Maybe a mamba was seen on this road once. Well, I'm trying to find something for you here on Mamba Road. We're heading west. We're going to go back down towards the Mulwati. I'm going to send you back to James, to the Jigger, and see what they can find for you. And I'll see you in a little while.
Welcome back to Jiga. Quiet morning out today, so a little tough, as I'm sure you've seen with Mark. We have been following the tracks of a male leopard. I think they were from yesterday though, so not very fresh. And we've had the odd good bird sighting, but nothing in the way of big and hairies, as they like to say. We're currently tracking along here, and we did have some more Franklin alarm calls, but they also seem to have stopped. So the bush is a very calm and peaceful place today, and in fact that's my favorite sort of reason to be in the bush, and that's for the calm and the peace of that the wilderness seems to exude on a day like today. So we're going to carry on along the road here and see if we can't pick up on something. Feel free to fire away any questions, especially while it's so quiet, and I will do my level best to answer. We're not sure how. In Australia would like to know why some males impala have small herds of females and others have larger herds. Well, Georgie, that's not very easy to answer. Safe to say that there's probably no optimum size of herd. So were I to answer the question, what I would say to you is that the males, when they start to rut, they don't always have a herd of females. It's only during the rutting season or just leading up to mating. They will pick up and start to herd whatever females they can find. So if there happens to be a large nursery herd of females and he's an experienced ram, then chances are he'll pick up chances are he'll have a much larger herd than if he was a less experienced ram and he had found a nursery herd of females that was possibly a bit smaller. So yes, if he's a very experienced male, and by experienced I mean he has the ability to corral his females or his harem, then it's possible that he could gather a larger herd. And if he's a bit smaller and less experienced, perhaps a smaller herd. But I think it has probably largely to do with the size of the initial nursery herd that he finds. Jeffrey from Texas would like to know why it is that duiker sometimes eat meat. So they have been recorded eating frogs or rodents and guinea fowl chicks. I think, Jeffrey, certainly in my guiding career I've never seen it. And I think the incidences of duiker eating meat being recorded are probably slightly over-exaggerated. That said, there are one or two herbivores that will chew on meat or on carrion or on bones, and it's purely so that they can derive a bit of perhaps some sort of nutritional benefit. So, for example, giraffe will chew on old bones for phosphorus. Hippo will sometimes eat carrion, and remember that they eat a diet largely based on plants, which means that protein is quite difficult to come by. And so if there's a particular protein deficiency in the diet, then they might sample some form of meat. But duiker won't sort of actively go after rodents and frogs as a matter of course. Wyoming has asked an interesting question about giraffes and the sounds they make. Juliet, it is interesting. Giraffes don't make a noise like many other herbivores or animals do. I have heard them snort when they're alarmed, so if they see a lion or something like that, they might snort. There is some research to show that they do have some form of infrasonic communication. So rather like elephants are able to communicate in wavelengths that are too long our ears to hear, so frequencies that are too low for us to hear. There's some evidence that giraffes are able to do that as well. I'm not sure what the latest research is. But they definitely will make a snorting sound if they're alarmed. Great question, that. See, the sky is turning that glorious deep winter blue that it does in this part of the world. In the summer it tends to burn out a bit, but in the winter time it maintains this beautiful blue color. It seems like all the animals are enjoying the blue color as well from some secluded location that I don't know. Stop here and see if you can hear this bird calling. I'm sure if the microphone will pick it up. Just off to the side here. There he is. He's just flopped down into the bush there. That's the white-browed scrub robin. There we can hear him. He will imitate other birds as well, but they're not great mimics. The white-browed scrub robin. Not as good as something like a Sabota lark, which is extremely accurate. Mimicry is actually a very interesting topic. So the larks and the robins will mimic other bird calls, and we're not really sure why they do it, but it's probably to increase or to there's another good mimic just there in that Cumbritum bush, in that bush willow. There's a fork-tailed drongo. That's a lovely shot of him. They also like to mimic other birds. And we think they do it because if they make their territories sound full, the competition for food will be slightly less. That's one of the possible reasons. We do know that robins that are able to mimic, so within a species, so for example a red-capped robin, within that species, individuals that are males especially that are able to mimic more birds than other males tend to get more mates. So it may simply be an evolutionary response to a bit like a peacock's tail, where there's no specific advantage to the number of calls that they can make, but because of the way evolutionary competition works, it's possible that the number of calls that the bird is able to make has increased over time through the pressure to mate. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. If it doesn't, I shall explain it again. like to know what we do if we come across an injured animal, and are we able to help? Fiona, it depends very much on the animal, which is quite a harsh thing to say, but we will normally let nature take its course. So if the animal has been injured in a natural circumstance, we will normally leave it alone. If it's an endangered species like a cheetah or a wild dog, then normally we'll call the vet in to come and sort the problem out. If, for example, if we found a kudu or a zebra with a broken leg, the chances of that animal ever surviving, even if the leg was set, are so small that the only help we would do would be to euthanize it. But normally we would let nature take its course. And it's incredible how some injured animals, where we would think it impossible, are able to survive. I've seen a two-limbed monkey before. So a monkey that's lost its arm somehow, both on the right-hand side, and has broken the right leg, but to the point where it won't fix. And the monkey has survived and continues to survive just with two limbs on the left-hand side. Gavin in San Diego wants to know why we don't see many jackals on drive. Gavin, the Sabi Sands is not known for its jackals. We seem to be at a point probably where the side-striped jackal is replaced by the black-back jackal. I can't give you a definitive answer, but in other areas quite close by, for example at Ngala, just north of here, every clearing has got a little pair of black-back jackals, and around here that just doesn't seem to be the case. And I can't give you a definitive answer, but safe to say that south of here, and as you move down the coastal plain, the black-back jackal tends to be replaced by the side-striped jackal, and you will get both species here. And I mean, their ranges do overlap, but it might be because the ranges have sort of come into contact here, but I can't give you a definitive answer to that.